Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are glad you are here. We've got a great group and looking forward to a great presentation today on Hire Right the First Time with Melissa Charles from Desert Leadership. My name is Doug Kofer, and I'm your host for today, and I'll be keeping things rolling along here and answering. We'll be doing a Q&A session here at the end, so if you have questions you'd like to submit, we definitely encourage you to do that via the question panel here in GoToWebinar. Our presenter today is Melissa Charles, who's the owner and CEO of Desert Leadership, a Tempe-based human capital and leadership development consulting firm with her father, Jeff Charles. Melissa has over 24 years of experience in sales and retail, as well as sales, auditing, customer service, and management. And she has got a great presentation put together for us today on hiring right the first time. So, Melissa, if you're ready, I'll hand it off to you. Let's take it away.
Great. Thank you, Doug, for that great introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to an interesting webinar. And as Doug said, please make sure to let us have any of the questions that might come up during the webinar so that we can do those in the question and answer section at the end. So if everybody's ready to go, here we go. Hire right the first time. Are you tired of high turnover, frustrated employees? Your best people are leaving, poor performance, inconsistent profitability, high hiring costs? These are mostly the things that people are really frustrated with, especially in today's economy. During this webinar, what we will learn is the costs associated with hiring and hiring mistakes, learn how to judge an applicant's character and talent traits, be introduced to our fast, accurate, cost-effective, and EEOC-compliant assessment platform, show you how to use our candidate profile to hire better employees, and learn how the right employees can make your organization successful. Now, I have a quote that I heard, and I thought it was really great. I apologize, I don't know exactly who actually said this quote. If you're trying to achieve excellent levels of performance in your organization, it's going to be a lot easier if you hire terrific people in the first place. And I really do believe that to be true, because at the end of the day, we're as good as the people that we have working for us. They're really an extension of ourselves. So when we hire the right people, the most terrific people we can find, the better our organization will be. The ability to hire effectively relies on a combination of several factors. One is preparation, the second is questioning, and lastly is follow-through. With trends changing and more jobs being added, you must fully be prepared to capitalize on the wealth of human resources that are available to you today. The ability to hire the right people in any organization is extremely important to the profitability and success within the organization. So here are some facts about the hiring process today. 20% of hiring decisions for salaried candidates fail. More than 50% of hiring decisions for hourly candidates fail. So you really kind of have to sit back and ask yourself, why is that? Because that's a pretty big percentage. You know, when we're hiring people, there's usually two scenarios that it falls into. One is you are replacing an existing employee. The other is that you're creating a new position. You know, you have to remember in this process that there is no such thing as the perfect employee. We all wish that it could be that way, but it's not. What you have to kind of aim for is an applicant that has high probability of success within your organization. This means the applicant possesses the majority of the skills that you're looking for, and that they're also going to make positive contributions to your organization. Now, when we feel like we've hired somebody that fits that bill and really they're just not the right candidate, we tend to blame them for them not working out. And we start the process over again, the failed process of trying to hire again with the same way that we hired that individual. And the thing is that we have to understand that it's not necessarily always the candidate's fault. We really have to sit back and look at our process and see what worked, what didn't work, and what we might need to change about that. The cost of hiring a bad match. The industry rule of thumb is the wrong person costs you 3 times his or her annual salary. So if we think about that, if we have an hourly employee that we've hired on at, let's say, $50,000 a year, they're going to end up costing you $150,000. Same goes for if you have a management or an executive within your company that maybe you've hired on at a salary of $150,000. They're going to end up costing you about $450,000, and that's just for starters. And when we look at that, those are pretty big numbers that if you're not hiring correctly, that's really going to cost you. There's also lost opportunity cost. This plus lost business, potential customers, and momentum. And if you really think about it, at that point, you're right back to square one looking for a replacement. Now, when we're talking about lost opportunity costs, one thing comes to my mind is lost productivity, and that really comes down to poor time management, time invested by other employees to work with the bad hire, the time spent searching and screening for a replacement. This also could be, the coworker and or the manager or both spending time training that individual. The impact on the employee morale because you do have someone that really is just not fitting with what you believe they were supposed to fit as far as the job and the organization. There's direct impacts as far as salary, benefits, advertising costs, and unemployment pay as well. Now, why are these costs so high? Expenses associated with hiring include interview expenses such as travel, hotel, and meals, training and orientation, employment testing, termination costs. We really have to look at all of the steps in our process and really have to work on making sure that our hiring process really has a good match. So at the end of it, we get someone that is really going to be beneficial for our organization. But then mostly it's because you need to repeat the entire hiring process to replace the wrong hire, which includes the time and expenses in order to do that. Why you hire the wrong person in the first place? And that's really kind of a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is mismatched skills. When you hire someone whose skills do not correspond to what the job requires, then you pretty much have a huge problem. This usually occurs because differences in the description of what the requirement is for the job versus what maybe HR is actually telling you the job actually entails. So you want to make sure that your job description is as accurate as possible so that there is no discrepancy once you start that hiring process. Unclear performance expectations. This issue can also have several causes. It could simply be poor communication or inadequate training, which could be addressed easily enough. However, it also could be aggravated by more serious problems like poor outlined work processes or a culture of long work hours. The next one is personality incompatibility. This one's a big one because it's pretty important. You want to make sure that the person that you're bringing in or persons you're bringing into the organization do have character, because that is just as important as skills and experience. What good is the employee's skills and experience if your business can't utilize them because of the behavioral problems? This is an issue that could have been caused by too many focuses on the skills and the experience, or one or the other when you were going through the hiring process. Lastly would be the cultural misfit. Now, with this, you could have someone that has the skills and experience, and even the personality is a perfect fit, but for some reason, they're just not meshing with the company culture. The employee just doesn't fit in, and that can lead to a failed hire as well. You know, it's important that when you're hiring individuals for your organization, that they do fit your values. You know, you can want to keep somebody in your organization that, you know, they're always meeting their goals and they're very productive, but they're just not fitting in. So you really have to sit down and ask yourself, is this an employee that I believe with some training I can change that behavioral side of it? You know, and it could very well just be that they add value and you want to keep them, so it's time to invest in changing those behaviors. And that could simply be something from a team building exercise or mini exercises to coaching from their manager or an external coach. They may just need specific training on skills in areas such as conflict management, communication, or their overall leadership style, because it's not just your hourly associates that this could be an issue with, it could be your managers as well. This brings me to our next quote, which is a really good one as well. I am convinced that nothing we do is more important than hiring and developing people. At the end of the day, you bet on people, not on strategies. And it really is true. At the end of the day, your people really are your strongest asset that you have. Top mistakes companies make in hiring the wrong person. Some of the well-known reasons that jobs are not filled with the right person are relying on intuition as one of the strong decision factors. I know there's probably many of us out there that it comes down to what you really think, your intuition in making this decision. And sometimes that works for you and sometimes it doesn't. And it's really kind of, you want to be careful because this is one of the main reasons why, you know, a decision might not be a good fit for your company. Untrained or not properly trained interviewers. In the interview process, you want to make sure that your interviewers, whomever that may be, it could be yourself, it could be a vice president, it could be one of your managers that is actually doing the interviewing for you, you want to make sure that they are properly trained in that. They have reviewed the resumes. They know the people that are coming in. They have a good handle on what the job description is that they're interviewing for. They're prepared to ask questions of the interviewee and utilize their time in the interview to really get to know the interviewee as best as possible. Wrong assessment of candidates' past experience, motivation, and skills, failing to value the strong and or weak elements of their candidates. Failure to detect exaggerations in the resumes and what candidates tell about themselves. This is another one that I'm sure we've all run across. I know I have run across it many times when hiring, as well as I have seen many coworkers do things like this, where they found this job that they really know that they can do. They have some of the background for it, but not all of it. They've gone in and they've really kind of tailored their resume to fit that job that they're applying for so that they can get their foot in the door, because they are just one of those people that they're really good at interviewing. And you want to be careful because there's lots of people out there that have mastered the interview process and are able to kind of exaggerate their way into a position and make you believe that they are the perfect fit, when in reality, they really aren't. Now we come to kind of a fun part for me, and something that is really very important and something should be considered is the assessment piece of an interview process. So data is the driver for business success. Desert Leadership can provide assessment tools that will help you collect the data to hire those top performers. You know, we have the ability to hire, engage, and retain high-performance workplace with our assessment tools that we have, assessment tools, and also we have surveys that are really great as well. You know, there are many assessment pieces out there, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of at least one of these. There's Myers-Briggs, there's DISC, there's Wonderlic. Well, I am lucky to be able to also be affiliated with 360 Solutions, and one of their very successful pieces is the assessments and surveys. And, you know, since I've been affiliated with them, I've been able to learn a lot about you know, really how valuable assessments can be. You know, so again, our main question with this is, what is it that we're wanting to assess? And, you know, every position that you're trying to fill is important. You want to have the opportunity to assess all jobs that you have. What you have to understand is that the assessment you use on an hourly associate might not always be the same, and you really don't want it to be the same as when you're looking for a manager or an executive in your organization. And what's really nice and interesting about our assessments is that we are able to tailor them towards the job that you are looking to fill. And I'll get a little bit more detailed in that in just a few moments. Using assessments to make good hiring decisions. Using employee assessments is the best way to get an unbiased view of a potential new hire. It is also an ability to increase the probability of a match between the job and the person. When you have a good match, you reduce your turnover, you increase the employee satisfaction, and you maximize your productivity. While you want to use assessments for all positions, like I was saying, you want to make sure that the assessment process really matches the value of that position. You would not want to invest the same, as I was talking about, in you know, an hourly worker as you would a vice president. Within the 360 Solution suite of assessments and surveys, we have the candidate profile, we have the personality profile, we have the sales aptitude, we also have the 360 feedback, and we have the skills testing. Now, with the candidate profile, you know, this really provides an in-depth, objective, comprehensive, and reliable information about your people, far beyond what you could uncover in just a typical interview, performance review, or day-to-day interaction, which is a great thing to have. So, you know, with this ability, you're going to be able to really have somebody stand out or see where somebody really stands based on the assessment. And like I was saying before, we can we can tailor this towards that specific job. So if you have someone, let's say that's a top performer in your organization and you're thinking, I really would love to clone this person, we can take those traits and create questions so that we're getting to the true basis of what that interviewee is really about. Let's say it's more of a sales position that you're looking at. You know, this is a great piece because it measures the applicant in 11 different areas. It provides insight to what kind and type of salesperson they are. the 360 feedback is amazing because I know I've actually worked for many corporations that actually use this throughout the year to really gauge the satisfaction of their employees, where they've done well, maybe where the company needs to correct a few things. And with that feedback, you're going to be able to gauge the training, the evaluation from a personal and leadership development standpoint. Again, with the candidate profile, we do have over 25 years of research that is done on that. It's fast, it's accurate, it's cost effective, and it's EEOC compliant. And I know you're probably thinking, okay, I know a little bit about assessments and I know they can be rather costly. And that is true. But the nice thing about our 360 assessments and surveys is it's very cost effective. Whether you have 50 people in your organization or you have 50,000, it just we'd have to sit down and talk about really kind of what you're looking for and tailor your assessments towards that, and then figure out the cost part of it from there. But I can guarantee you it is definitely cost effective. Benchmarking is the key. By using your top performers as a benchmark, you can predictably hire more employees like them. By using various exiting and custom benchmarks to see how close the scores and personality types are, you can determine if the candidate is the right fit. By using benchmarking, you nearly triple the probability of hiring that top performer. Again, with benchmarking, what's really cool, and this is awesome result, is that you have a 78% chance of hiring the top performer by using benchmarking. And employees who are a good fit for that job are 2.5 times more productive than those that are not. And those are some great results. And you know, when you start to see results like that with applicants that actually fit the job based off of your assessment, it's a win-win for everybody. Now, the high payoff hiring is a how-to guide. Basically, you want to evaluate your process. You want to look at your hiring process and really hone in on what's going to work for you. You want to prepare for effective hiring. This is your interview process. You want to make sure that you're prepared with who you've got coming in, your questions that you're going to answer or ask and possibly get answered. You know, you want to make sure that you are going to ask fundamental questions, also behavioral questions, because the behavioral questions are really going to lead to how people actually will handle situations that come up. Then, of course, the interview process. Making the hiring decision. Again, when it comes to making the hiring decision, this is really where you've had your first interview. You've got probably 3 or 4 people that you're thinking are going to be a good fit. You bring them back in for a second interview, and you know, this is really where you could utilize assessments to help you gauge, is the person that you're thinking the best fit really the best fit for the job. And then managing the hiring process. It's always good to constantly be looking at your hiring process and keep the things that are working and change the things that might not have worked so well the first time or the second time. It's always a process that's always going to change and evolve because you're always going to learn more and better techniques to that interview process. The ability to hire the right people, the top performers, is essential to the bottom line. So again, we want to hire right the first time. I guess we'll go ahead and turn it back over to you, Doug. Hopefully we have some good questions. Doug? We seem to have lost Doug. So give us just a moment here, and we will try and get to your question.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yay.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Yes,
That's okay.
Sorry about that, everybody. A little technical difficulty with the phone there. Yes, we do have some questions, Melissa, so I'll jump right into those. The first one was, what are some signs that our hiring process is not working well?
Really, there's few signs, but I think the biggest one is turnover. That is such a good sign that your hiring process isn't working. You know, you can't keep people in positions. You're finding that you're hiring these people and they're just not working out for one reason or another. You know, that is the biggest sign. Also, if another sign would be, you know, you're losing your good people because of other people maybe that are not good fits that you're bringing into the company. So you really have to kind of look at the overall employee satisfaction with it as well. Those are some good signs that your hiring process isn't working.
Okay, great. You know, one thing also, this was a question I was thinking about while you were giving the presentation. You know, obviously we're focusing a lot on the hiring process. And the assessments are obviously critical to being able to hire top performers. But one question was, how can the assessments be used in additional ways in the company to help the company be successful? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, not only is the assessment piece good for when you're hiring, but it's also good to be able to utilize those throughout, you know, a year with your employees by doing surveys. Also by, you know, creating assessments that gauge where people really are with maybe their learning process or their job, the satisfaction with that. You can really utilize the assessment piece in many ways with the ability that we have to kind of create a tailored assessment to fit what you're looking for. That makes it really easy to be able to utilize it throughout the year and always be learning and getting new information for where your employees are in your organization.
Yeah, definitely right. I mean, it can be a great tool to find out where you need to train people, and like you were saying, that's absolutely right. Okay, our next question is, why do you think companies are not using assessments more during the hiring process?
To be honest, I think the hugest thing, well, there's really two pieces to it. One, people are just not realizing or understanding what the assessment piece can offer. And two, it's the cost. You know, when you look at some of these other assessments that are out there, you know, they're very costly. And so right away, people might be interested in the piece, but once they start to hear the cost to it, they're like, there's no way I can afford to do that. It's a great idea, but I just cannot afford that. And I think that's a lot of reason why people, organizations stay away from it, because it's just not a cost that they can afford.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and going along with that, that kind of flows right into the next question. In terms of the cost of hiring somebody that's a bad fit, do you have some examples of, you know, the kind of costs that people can incur or the companies can incur from making a bad hire?
Well, you know, again, you look at the fact that, you know, the cost of hiring somebody could not just be a monetary cost, but it could be, you know, the morale in the company. You hire a bad fit for a position and, you know, you put time, training, you put other associates in there to assist with that training, so you're taking time away from their productivity. You know, if you've got someone that, let's say it's a sales position, for example, let's say you've got, you know, somebody that's bringing in, you know, $500,000 a year, and then you've got somebody else that's bringing in $1 million a year. You know, you can see you've got that top performer there. You've got someone who could be at that same level, but they're just not doing it. So if you had two people at that same level of that $1 million, you're just, you know, you're just making the organization that much more stronger. So it's really key to realize that, you know, a bad hire can affect so many different pieces of your organization. You know, monetarily, time, you know, it affects the morale in the company as well, which makes your employees that love being there not want to be there so much anymore.
Right, absolutely. That was great. Okay, our next question actually says, can you tell us how you would recommend using assessments in the interview process?
The way that I would use them, that's like kind of what we were talking about before, is if I've done my initial interviewing and I know there's 3 or 4 people that really could be a good fit, I'm going to bring them in for a second interview. And during that process, I would have them take an assessment, because of the fact that that assessment is going to give me a better insight to their fit for that position. So I would do it at that point. I would, you know, obviously have my second interview, but I would also have them taking that assessment, because the assessment, I can get that information within minutes and be able to know, you know, what that fit really would be if I was to hire that individual. So that's where I would use the assessment.
Okay, great. You know, one thing I'd also would throw in there, just from a personal note, I mean, my experience, the assessment report has interview questions as well, and I think those can be really helpful in helping to find out if, you know, the person you're interviewing really is going to match up to the job. So that's something I would add too. Okay, our next question is, let's see. Do you have any examples of, or can you give us some ideas on successful ways that companies can use assessments besides, I mean, you talked about the hiring, but like if they're, I guess it's kind of like the sales example you were giving a minute ago. Could you kind of go into more detail about that?
You know, other ways to use the assessments, again, is to gauge, you know, especially like in the sales aspect, or even just in a non-sales position, you know, it never hurts to kind of gauge where your employees are at from time to time, whether you have to do monthly reviews or quarterly reviews or what have you. That's always a good way to, you know, use an assessment as well. Being able to tailor the questions around the information that you're trying to look for, to see if, even though they might have been a great fit at the beginning, maybe where they're lacking some of their ability, maybe where some training would be more beneficial to them, you know, to make them even better than what they are, or to help them where they're struggling. So that would definitely be another area, as well as the surveys also are a great way to gauge where your employees are, as well as what's working in the organization from a management standpoint, or just in a focus standpoint. And, you know, just to get an overall satisfaction of where your organization stands.
Okay, great. Next question we had is, do you think that using your assessments would be good in a succession planning exercise?
I think they would be. You know, you're always wanting to look ahead and, you know, really figure out where you're wanting to go, the direction. Employees are always wanting to move ahead. Nobody wants to stay stagnant. So, utilizing the suite of assessments that we have would be a great benefit to giving you insight to several different areas within the organization.
Okay, great. Next question we had come in was, what is the best way to see the assessments in action and how the results work?
Well, really the best way is to go to my website at desertleadership.com. You can go on there and do an assessment yourself so that you can kind of see what it is and how it works. I will get the results, and then I'll be able to contact you and, go over the results so you can actually see yourself by doing it what all's involved in it and how quickly we get the results and what they tell. It's anywhere from an 8 to 18-page report that we could get, and then we could also talk about ways of how we can tailor it more toward what you're looking for it to be.
Okay, great. Again, I would encourage everybody that's with us today, if you have a question, please submit it. We've got one more, but I want to give everybody one more chance to throw in a question for Melissa to answer. Melissa, the last question we had was, how instrumental do you believe assessments should be in the hiring process?
Well, I by no means think that it should be the only thing that you weigh your decision on. It's really meant to aid in a picture of a potential candidate or already an existing employee. It should by no means take over the whole decision process. It really should just be an added benefit to your hiring process or your evaluation process. So while I do believe it's important, it's just a very added benefit to your process itself. So by no means should it be the only thing that you look at.
Great. Okay, that's great insight. Okay, well, we haven't had any more questions come in, so I think that'll do it. Really appreciate your time today, Melissa, and the great presentation, and thank everybody that joined us today. Definitely was valuable insight into assessments, and we hope you'll go to desertleadership.com and try out the free assessment that Melissa offered and get in touch with her. So keep a lookout also on desertleadership.com for her upcoming webinars next month, and we will hopefully see you then. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great day.